Echoes of the Gene Force. Chapter 1, Ghosts of the Past. The flickering light of the console cast long shadows across Captain Kai Morrison's face. He drummed his fingers rhythmically against the worn armrest, the steady beat a counterpoint to the groaning of the aging ship. Outside, the inky blackness of space held an unsettling stillness, broken only by the distant flicker of a dying star. "Captain," came a voice, tinged with a hint of amusement, "still staring at that blinking light? It's not going to tell you anything new." Kai glanced up to see Anya Sharma, the ship's resident genius and resident skeptic, leaning against the doorway. Her dark hair was pulled back in a tight braid, highlighting the sharp intelligence in her eyes. Despite the years spent in cramped quarters together, her crisp white lab coat always seemed a bit out of place aboard the Iron Phoenix. "Just making sure we're all set for the jump," Kai replied, his voice gruff. The war had left its mark on him, not just in the jagged scar that bisected his eyebrow, but in the way his gaze lingered too long on the empty expanse of space. "Relax, Captain," Anya said, a hint of a smile playing on her lips. "The Phoenix may be old, but she's reliable. Besides, it's just a routine salvage haul. Nothing that should keep a decorated war hero like yourself up at night." Kai forced a smile. "Decorated," he scoffed, the word tasting bitter on his tongue. The medals he'd earned during the Silent War felt more like shackles now, constant reminders of the battles lost and the comrades sacrificed. Anya, thankfully, didn't push the subject. Across the bridge, Jax, the gruff but loyal engineer, let out a low whistle. "Looks like we're coming up on the jump point, Captain." Kai straightened, the weariness momentarily forgotten as duty took hold. He brought his gaze back to the console, the holographic map flickering to life. The coordinates for the salvage operation, a derelict space station in a forgotten corner of the galaxy, pulsed faintly. It was a simple job: find, retrieve, and return. Exactly the kind of assignment he needed right now. "All right, crew," Kai announced, his voice finding its command tone. "Prepare for jump in 5. Jax, double-check the engines. Anya, any last diagnostic checks?" Jax grunted in affirmative, his broad hands working a familiar rhythm on the engine controls. Anya tapped away at her tablet, her brow furrowed in concentration. "System's nominal, Captain," she reported after a moment. "Though, there is a minor anomaly in the approach vector. Nothing major, just a slight fluctuation in the gravity well." Kai frowned. "Anomaly? You sure it's not just another one of the Phoenix's quirks?" Anya chuckled. "Positive. This is something external. It's faint, but... Captain, take a look at this." The holographic map flickered, a single point of light deviating from the charted course. It was subtle, barely a tremor, but unmistakable. Kai stared at it, a prickle of unease crawling down his spine. "What do you think it is?" Jax rumbled from his station, his voice laced with a similar unease. "Hard to say," Anya admitted, tapping the holographic anomaly, "but it's forcing us off course. We might need to adjust our approach." Kai leaned closer, the silence stretching taut in the bridge. The Iron Phoenix wasn't known for encountering anomalies on routine salvage missions. This, whatever it was, felt different. A shiver danced across his skin, not from the chill of space, but from a deeper, more primal fear. He took a deep breath, forcing down the rising unease. "Prepare for a manual course correction," he ordered, his voice firm. "We stick to the mission. Just a little detour, that's all." The bridge hummed with activity as Jax adjusted the thrusters, the Iron Phoenix groaning in protest as she veered off course. Kai kept his gaze fixed on the holographic map, the anomaly now a pulsing beacon leading them into the vast unknown. He couldn't shake the feeling that this was more than just a detour. It was the beginning of something else entirely. Chapter 2. A Labyrinth of Secrets. The derelict space station loomed ahead, a skeletal silhouette against the backdrop of a dying nebula. The Iron Phoenix lurched and strained as she approached, the artificial gravity groaning under the uneven pull of the station's decaying gravity well. "Looks like someone wasn't too keen on visitors," Jax muttered, his voice laced with a nervous edge. He gripped the helm tighter, navigating the treacherous debris field surrounding the station. Kai stared out the viewport, a sense of foreboding settling in his gut. The station, once a marvel of engineering, was now a rusted husk. Solar panels hung limp, their surfaces scarred with micrometeoroid impacts. Docking ports gaped open like hollow wounds, their docking clamps long since corroded and useless. Docking won't be an option, Anya announced from behind him, a frown etched on her face. We'll have to take the EVA pods. Kai nodded in agreement. Jax, prep the pods. Anya, any readings on life support systems? Negative, Captain, Anya replied, her brow furrowed as she scanned the datapad. The station seems completely dead. No power signature, no life readings. A flicker of unease passed through Kai. A derelict station with no life signs was one thing, but a completely dead station felt wrong. The docking bay hissed open, revealing the 3 bulky EVA pods nestled within. Jax, already suited up in his heavy-duty exoskeleton, hefted himself into his pod with a practiced ease. Anya followed suit, her white lab coat looking incongruous next to the bulky suit. Kai paused for a moment, a tightness constricting his chest. This station, this desolate corner of space, it triggered something deep within him, a memory half-formed, a whisper on the edge of his consciousness. He shook his head, attributing it to fatigue and the oppressive atmosphere. He climbed into his own pod, the familiar weight of the suit a grounding presence. The airlock hissed open, releasing them into the inky void. The station loomed even larger now, a rusted behemoth against the backdrop of the starfield. The silence was absolute, broken only by the hiss of their own breathing. Docking with the station proved treacherous. The docking clamps were frozen, and navigating the debris field within the docking bay required delicate maneuvering. Kai landed first, his boots crunching on a layer of dust and metallic flakes. Eerie place, Jax rumbled over the comm system, his voice echoing in the cavernous docking bay. Anya landed beside them, scanning the environment with her helmet light. Looks ancient. Pre-Federation technology for sure. Kai ran a hand along the cold metal wall. The intricate carvings etched onto the surface were unfamiliar, yet somehow strangely familiar. A wave of dizziness washed over him, a fleeting vision of figures clad in strange garments, their faces obscured by the shadows. He shook his head, attributing it to the recycled air in his helmet. All right, let's split up. Anya, take the west wing. Jax, head east. I'll explore the central control room. The station felt like a tomb, its corridors shrouded in darkness. The only light came from their helmet lamps, casting long, distorted shadows on the walls. The air was thick with dust and the metallic tang of decay. Every creak and groan of the aging hull amplified their sense of isolation. Anya reported finding malfunctioning life support systems and a network of dead consoles. Jack stumbled upon a collapsed corridor, its entrance sealed shut by a layer of molten metal. The evidence painted a grim picture. A violent event had transpired here, one that had claimed lives and sealed the station's fate. As Kai traversed the central control room, his helmet light fell upon a holographic display unit, its surface cracked but miraculously still functional. Tentatively, he activated it. The display flickered to life, revealing a complex holographic map of the station. But what truly caught his eye was a pulsating red dot in the center, labeled simply GeneForge. A jolt of recognition shot through him, the fragmented memory solidifying. The whispers, the visions, they were all connected to the station, to this GeneForge. An overwhelming sense of dread gripped him, an echo of a forgotten past. He deactivated the display, the silence of the control room pressing down on him. He had a feeling this was just the beginning, that the secrets buried within this derelict station would change their lives forever. Chapter 3. Awakening the Past. Kai emerged from the central control room, his mind reeling from the discovery of the GeneForge. He found Anya and Jax huddled around a holographic display, their faces etched with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. "What did you find, Captain?" Anya asked, her voice hushed in the oppressive silence of the station. Kai pointed to the display where the red dot pulsed ominously. "This, the GeneForge. Looks like it's the heart of this station." Jax grunted, scratching his beard with a gloved hand. "GeneForge, huh? Sounds like some fancy tech for growing space vegetables." Anya shook her head. "No, Jax, this is something different. Pre-Federation technology for sure, but the design, it's unlike anything I've ever seen." She began tapping away at her datapad, frustration tinging her voice. The databanks are corrupted. I can't get a clear reading on its function. Kai felt a strange pull towards the gene forge, a subconscious urge to delve deeper. Let's follow the map, he said, his voice firm despite the unease churning in his stomach. They navigated a maze of corridors, the air growing colder with every step. The whispers in his mind intensified, fragmented memories of flickering blue light in metallic chambers. Finally, they reached a heavy blast door, its surface pitted with scorch marks. Jax grunted, his gloved hand wrapping around a control panel. Looks like someone wanted to keep this hidden. With a hiss and groan, the door yielded, revealing a dimly lit chamber beyond. A wave of stale air washed over them, carrying the faint metallic scent of blood. The only light source came from a series of pulsating blue crystals embedded in the walls. In the center of the chamber stood a massive, cylindrical device, its surface etched with intricate symbols that seemed to vibrate with an inner light. It pulsed with a low hum, an energy that crackled in the air. Anya gasped, her eyes wide with awe. It's beautiful, and yet terrifying. As they approached the device, Kai felt a warmth spread through his body, a tingling sensation that centered on the scar on his eyebrow. The whispers in his mind coalesced into a single clear image, a figure, cloaked in light, activating the device. Then a sudden jolt surged through him, knocking him to his knees. His vision blurred, and his heart hammered against his ribs. Through the haze, he saw Anya and Jax rushing towards him, their faces etched with concern. "Captain, what's wrong?" Anya shouted, her voice strained. Kai tried to speak, but the only thing that came out was a ragged gasp. His gaze locked on the gene forge, the blue light pulsing with renewed intensity. A strange sense of recognition washed over him, a knowledge that defied logic. He was the key. Suddenly, a harsh alarm blared through the chamber, red emergency lights strobing in the darkness. The chamber door slammed shut, sealing them in. "What the?" Jax roared, fumbling with his weapon. "We're not alone," Anya said, her voice tight. A low growl echoed through the chamber, followed by the menacing hiss of a plasma rifle powering up. A group of hulking figures materialized from the shadows, their sleek, segmented armor glinting under the blue light. Xylon. Kai's blood ran cold. He had encountered these ruthless alien warriors during the war, their relentless pursuit of genetic perfection leaving a trail of devastation across the galaxy. "They're here for the gene forge," Anya said, her voice grim. But before she could continue, the Xylon leader raised a clawed hand, firing a burst of plasma that scorched the wall next to them. A harrowing fight ensued. Kai found himself moving with an impossible speed and agility, dodging laser fire and weaving through the silent soldiers. The memories of his training, honed during the war, flooded back in an overwhelming surge. He felt a surge of energy coursing through his veins, an extension of the gene forge's power. The other crew members fought with a desperate ferocity. Jax used his brute strength to send one Xylon soldier flying, while Anya unleashed a barrage of energy bolts from her pistol. But they were outnumbered, and the Xylon were relentless. Just as it seemed all hope was lost, Kai saw an opening. With a burst of speed, he disarmed the Xylon leader, his body moving on autopilot. He slammed his fist into the alien's chest, sending it crashing into the control panel of the gene forge. The chamber filled with a blinding flash of blue light. The Xylon soldiers shrieked, clutching their heads as they were thrown back. The gene forge overloaded. Chapter 4. Unleashing the Potential. The blinding flash subsided, leaving the chamber plunged into a disorienting darkness. Kai blinked away spots in his vision, his ears ringing with a dull throb. Groans escaped the crumpled forms of the Xylon soldiers, their bodies twitching erratically. "What happened?" Anya rasped from beside him, her voice shaky. "The gene forge overloaded," Jax rumbled, picking himself up from the floor. "Looks like Kai gave them a little surprise." Kai looked down at his hand, half expecting to see some residual power coursing through him. But everything seemed normal. He felt drained, his muscles aching, but the surge of energy was gone. Suddenly, a renewed wave of alarm sirens blared through the chamber. Red emergency lights strobed even more rapidly, casting an ominous glow on the fallen Xylon. "They're not finished yet," Anya said, her voice grim. The blast door groaned under a relentless assault from outside. Sparks showered as energy blasts scorched the metal. It wouldn't hold for long. "We need to get out of here," Jack said, already heading towards the control panel. "Wait!" Kai shouted. He looked back at the Gene Forge, a strange intuition tugging at him. "There's something else." He rushed towards the device, ignoring the growing urgency of the situation. The blue crystals pulsed with a faint light, a whisper of the power that had coursed through him earlier. He traced a gloved finger across the intricate symbols etched on its surface, a sense of familiarity washing over him. "Kai, we don't have time for this," Anya called out, her voice strained. He ignored her, a plan forming in his mind. The memories, the fragmented visions, they held the key. The Gene Forge needed a specific trigger, a compatible genetic signature. Him. With a deep breath, he pressed his palm against the glowing surface. A surge of energy crackled through his body, a familiar warmth spreading from the scar on his eyebrow. The symbols on the Gene Forge flared to life, pulsing in sync with his heartbeat. A holographic display flickered on, revealing a complex sequence of genetic manipulation. Kai gasped, recognizing the patterns from the fleeting image in his mind. This wasn't just a weapon. It was a tool, a means to unlock dormant potential. "Kai, what are you doing?" Anya shouted, worry lacing her voice. "I think," Kai said, his voice hoarse, "I think I can activate it." Anya rushed to his side, her brow furrowed in concern. "Activate what? Are you crazy?" "There's no other way," Kai said, his gaze locked on the holographic display. "We need to fight back, and this," he gestured at the Gene Forge, "this might be our only chance." Anya's expression softened. She saw the steely resolve in his eyes, the same determination that had carried them through countless battles during the war. She knew arguing was pointless. "All right," she said, her voice firm, "then let's do this." With Anya by his side, analyzing the complex sequence, Kai prepared himself for the genetic manipulation. It was a gamble, a leap of faith into the unknown. But the alternative, facing the Xylan onslaught without any advantage, was suicide. The chamber filled with a low hum as the Gene Forge whirred to life. Anya guided him through the sequence, injecting stabilizing agents into his system to mitigate the risks. He braced himself for the impact, a cocktail of anticipation and fear churning in his gut. Then the world dissolved into a maelstrom of pain. It felt like his very being was being ripped apart and reassembled, every fiber of his existence screaming in protest. He gritted his teeth, drawing on his warrior spirit to endure. The pain ebbed as suddenly as it came, leaving him drained but exhilarated. A newfound strength surged through him, his muscles vibrating with raw power. He felt sharper, faster, his senses heightened to an inhuman degree. The chamber door finally gave way, bursting open with a thunderous clang. A swarm of Xylon soldiers flooded in, their weapons raised. But this time, Kai was ready. Chapter 5, The Weight of Choice. The chamber became a blur of motion as Kai moved with a speed that defied logic. He disarmed Xylon soldiers with lightning reflexes, his enhanced senses anticipating their every move. Anya unleashed a barrage of energy bolts, her aim deadly accurate. Jax, a whirlwind of raw power, sent Xylon flying with thunderous blows. The tide of the battle turned swiftly. The Xylon, surprised by Kai's newfound power and the crew's renewed ferocity, faltered. Their advanced weaponry proved useless against Kai's agility, and Anya's tactical brilliance kept them on the offensive. With a final disarming move, Kai sent the Xylon leader crashing to the floor. The remaining soldiers, their morale broken, surrendered their weapons. The silence that followed was heavy, punctuated only by the ragged breaths of the crew. Kai stood amidst the fallen Xylon, a strange mixture of exhilaration and unease coursing through him. He felt powerful, yes, but the weight of that power settled on him like a leaden cloak. "We did it," Anya said, her voice shaky but filled with relief. Jax grunted in agreement, collapsing onto a nearby crate. "Never thought I'd see the day Kai became a one-man wrecking crew." Kai forced a smile, but it felt hollow. He glanced back at the Gene Forge, the blue crystals pulsing with an eerie light. It had granted him power, but at what cost? Was he still human? Or had he become something else entirely? Days later, the Iron Phoenix docked at a neutral space station, a beacon for galactic diplomacy. They had delivered the Gene Forge, a decision made after long and heated discussions. The technology was too dangerous to keep, too tempting for power-hungry factions like the Xylan. The handover ceremony was a tense affair. Officials from various galactic powers eyed the gene forge with a mix of curiosity and apprehension. Kai, the reluctant hero, found himself the center of attention. Captain Morrison, a stern-faced ambassador, addressed him. "Your actions have put a powerful tool in our hands. We will ensure its potential is used responsibly." Kai nodded curtly, a bitter taste lingering on his tongue. He didn't envy the burden of responsibility they now bore. As they prepared to leave the station, Anya placed a hand on his shoulder. "You did the right thing, Kai," she said, her voice soft. "The gene forge is too dangerous in the wrong hands." He looked at her, his gaze lingering on the concern etched on her face. "Do you think I've changed?" Anya studied him for a moment before replying. "You're different, yes, but you're still Kai, the stubborn, brilliant, and sometimes reckless captain I know." A wry smile tugged at the corner of his lips. "Reckless, huh?" She chuckled. "Just a little, but that's what makes you, you." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the bustling activity on the space station. The past few weeks had changed them all, forging a new bond of trust and camaraderie. Taking a deep breath, Kai turned his gaze towards the endless expanse of space. He no longer felt the weight of his past haunting him. He had faced his demons, embraced his unique abilities, and emerged stronger. Anya placed a datapad in his hand. "New job offer," she said, a mischievous glint in her eyes. "Seems a distant colony needs some help with unusual biological threats." A spark of excitement ignited in Kai's eyes. Maybe a new adventure was exactly what he needed. With a grin, he fired up the Iron Phoenix engines. They had a new mission, a new chapter to write in their story. And this time, they were ready to face whatever the universe threw their way.